So when it comes to money, the bank is reality. So as long as you keep your budget detached from the bank, don't be surprised when your money goals never make it into your bank. So what I've done is, personally, I've made the Dave Ramsey system without the pennies, and I've made Mint without having to go on multiple apps. Lots of people have dreams. Everyone has habits, but almost no one has financial systems which will actually get them up this mountain to the dream, to their rich life. So in this video, I'm gonna take you step by step down the mountain, starting from your rich life, down to the systems and to the habits, so that you can actually make your dream life become reality financially. This is the system that I've used for many years, and it's been working for many years, all the way from when I was making $2,000 a month all the way up to $25,000 a month. This has been a very impactful system for me. This is one that I came up with on my own. This is part of my time funnel system, my segmentation system, and it really works. So starting with step one, if you don't know where you want to get to, how are you ever supposed to chart a course to get there? Or said a little differently, if you throw a dart at no target, don't be surprised when you hit nothing. So firstly, we're gonna design your rich life and where you want to go. So when you hear the word rich, what do you think of? Do you think of like greed and poor money management? Because when I use the term rich, I'm meaning having a full rich life, like how you would describe a food is rich. So when they say money can't buy happiness, I'm including happiness as part of that richness. So I have a notes app on my phone where I have different categories of things that would be in my rich life, like appetizers at restaurants, or books whenever I feel like it, or the ability to host parties, or quarterly like theater or concerts or events, longer summers where my family lives, having a house cleaner, no laundry. I'm working from home with Garrett. That is a huge piece of it. And then singing lessons. That's another thing that I want. So they say that money can't buy happiness, and that's absolutely true, but poverty buys nothing. So the basic principle that I have with my finances is to spend generously on the things that are part of my rich life, that make my life richer and more enjoyable, and things that make my life happier, and to cut mercilessly on the things that don't. So I should point out right now that I'm not the finance person, although I have had success with finances, but I am the systems person, and I'll teach you how to make a system for these goals. Part of my goal setting process for any of my goals is, whenever you have a goal, write it down and always keep it in mind. Write it on the mirror. You have a vision board, you have a Pinterest board about it, and you add things to it every day. Whatever your process is, keeping that thing always in mind so you can hit it. So now that you've outlined what your rich life is, that might seem kind of overwhelming. So part of my goal setting process is called segmentation, and so you chunk it down into more manageable steps. So like I said, I'm not the financial expert, so I'll defer to them and their systems here, but I will have listed here some steps that people say, like Dave Ramsey and other people who say that these are the steps that you should take. So step one, save $1,000 for an emergency fund. Step two, pay off debt and repair your credit. Step 3, save 3 to 6 months living expenses. Step 4, invest 15% in retirement, max out those accounts. Step 5, purchase and pay off your home early. Step 6, generosity. And these are kind of the pillars and the mile markers leading you up to your rich life. Now, since I'm not the financial expert, you can plug and play a different order. If there's a financial expert that you like and you want to do a different order to these things, absolutely, you can do that. I just kind of compiled a few different ones. So my advice as far as goal setting goes and being efficient with your goal setting and your systems is to pick one at a time. When you if you have like $300 left over each month, you are going to really dilute your efforts if you're trying to save for an emergency fund and save for a house and save for a car and save for retirement. You're diluting your efforts. So I've had the most success by tackling one thing at a time. I put all my focus into that one thing, and when that thing has become a habit and it's working, then we can add another thing. Now, as I've gone up personally the steps of this mountain, I found that, especially when I was making not very much money, the way that I had the most success was putting aside money every month, but also anytime I got a bonus or anytime I got a tax return, I put it into those things. And when I wasn't making very much money, a lot of times tax returns was some of the biggest chunk of money that I would see at a one-time basis each year. Now, this can seem overwhelming, and a lot of times when we're talking about money, this is a high stakes topic. This is something that people feel like maybe they're drowning or it feels overwhelming, but I want to remind you that just because you've seen the full staircase now doesn't mean you can't take the first step. And a lot of times people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And I've been incredibly shocked and surprised about the progress that I've made over the last 10 years, and it wouldn't have been possible if I wouldn't have just had a little bit of faith and taken the first step. Now that you can see what your first milepost is, you want to set a time frame around that. When do you want to reach that financial goal? So maybe you have the goal that you want to save $4,800 this year. So a lot of times people say, okay, I've got my goal, I've got my step one, I'm going to get started on step one. But no, we are actually going to work backwards. This whole process begins with the end in mind. Notice we started with the rich life and worked our way backwards. Once again, we're going to take the first mile marker that we have in mind and we're going to chunk it down backwards to make sure that it's realistic and set time frames for ourselves. This is part of my segmentation method and kind of part of the time funnel. So I would section that into quarterly mile markers and see, okay, if I was going to divide that evenly over the 4 quarters, how much would I need to save each quarter? Now at this point, maybe you're going to get a tax return in April or something. So you don't have to divide this perfectly evenly. If there are bonuses you're going to receive, you could do those bonuses first and then divide it evenly the rest of the way. So that might say, okay, I need to save $1,200 each quarter if I was going to do it evenly. Okay, so now let's divide the quarter into its 3-month segments. So we'll take quarter 1, we've got January, February, and March. That means I need to save $400 each month. Okay, so we'll zoom in even further. Okay, let's take January. Okay, January is divided into its 2 paychecks. So if I want to save $400 in January, that's $200 each paycheck. So then it becomes a little bit more manageable. Okay, if this is where I want to be, is this realistic on a paycheck by paycheck basis? Let's make sure we factor in tax returns and bonuses. So now you have your goal, you have your more specific goal, which is $200 per paycheck. But it's not enough just to have a goal, because like James Clear says, and I say a lot on this channel, you don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. So we need to have a system that we are regularly doing, a set of habits strung together, boots on the ground, that will get us up the mountain. So this is where I get to the paycheck routine. So in my 2024 intentional planner, I have markers where it says put in financial routines every month on the monthly spread. So for me, since we get paid twice per month, I do this twice per month and I have this payday routine. So I'm gonna build this template with you. So in the description box, I will have this template linked. This will give you access to the master copy of this template. You can duplicate that so that you can edit it and you can make it your own. So on this template, you need to include your financial priorities in order of importance. That's one thing that you're going to need, as well as the goal that we just outlined. So the first part of this document is it's writing down the goals, rewriting them. So what's my yearly goal? We got to remember, we got to look to the bigger vision. You write it down and always keep it in mind. Okay, so what was my quarterly outcome I need to hit? Okay, so what's my monthly outcome I need to hit? Okay, so what's my paycheck goal that I want to hit this paycheck? Now, the phrase that you may have heard a lot, and it's something that I definitely incorporate in my system, but it's pay yourself first. So it's part of the pickle jar theory where you put in the rocks first, the things that cannot bend and you don't want to flow around other things. Then you put in the sand, then you put in the water, because sand and water can kind of bend around different things. But your priorities are the rocks, and these are things that you don't want to sacrifice. You don't want to make compromises when it comes to your priorities. So I have a list here of my priorities. And so on the template, you can fill in your priorities there. So I've got my dream goal, that's the first priority. Things that include my rich life. So like I said, spend on the things that matter to you and cut mercilessly on the things that don't. And then I've got my checking account, bills, groceries and gas, and eat out coffee. So a little bit about these categories. I usually always put about $100 in checking because things will come up that I haven't anticipated. I don't want to make a habit of using my checking, but there are legitimately things that will come up. Bills are anything that come out typically on auto pay. So this is like utilities, rent. These are things that come out on auto pay, and there's not a lot of flexibility with them. There's a little bit of flexibility on utilities, but typically there's not a flexibility of these things. Then I have a category for groceries and gas. I actually don't have a car anymore, but this is the category that I used when I did have a car. And there's a lot of flexibility with how much you want to spend on groceries and gas. And then finally at the bottom, I have eat out and coffee. So for me, this is listed in order of importance to me. Tithing is something that I have on mine as well, my personal copy of this. So, outline in order what your priorities are. So then I would just write down, okay, for my dream goal, I wanted to have $200 per paycheck. So that is going to leave over this amount of money for that paycheck. Okay, now I get to the next category. I'll spend this much money, which leaves this much. And as you go down, by the end, there should be zero here. You're kind of getting down to net zero. If I have anything left over from the previous month, that all goes to savings or whatever the dream goal is for that month. Now, when most people budget, this paycheck routine, this is where they stop. They say, okay, I've got my budget, I've got my categories, we're good to move on. But no. So when it comes to money, the bank is reality. So as long as you keep your budget detached from the bank, don't be surprised when your money goals never make it into your bank. So this is a home tidying philosophy. And the philosophy is everything has a place and everything is in its place. So when you've made the budget, all we've done is the first step. We've assigned everything a place, but now we need to put everything in its place. So if I have a list of financial priorities in that budget, I want to see that in the bank account. I don't want to go to multiple places. I don't want to go to Mint because that's not my financial reality. That's not where my money actually lives. My money lives in the bank. So I don't want to go to an app that retrospectively tells me how I spent my money. If I have this amount of money allotted for eating out and I go there and I'm over budget, I want to know right then and there. I want my card to decline. That's just my personal philosophy. I don't want to get home and have to have the responsibility to continually check my categories on Mint. Okay, how am I doing on my categories? No, I want it to be in the bank, not any third-party app. So the closest that I heard was Dave Ramsey trying to solve this issue with his envelope system. So you have your budget categories and you have a physical envelope for each category. You take out cash and you sort it into those categories. Now I love the organization of that system, but I hated carrying around the pennies. So what I've done is, personally, I've made the Dave Ramsey system without the pennies, and I've made Mint without having to go on multiple apps. So everything changed when I found out that there are certain banks that create folders. So you have your checking and your savings account, and certain banks will have folders. And I thought, well, my bank doesn't do that, but it'd be nice if there was kind of a workaround. So I was like, why do we just have 2 accounts? I have way more categories for my money than just savings and checking. So I decided that I was going to create multiple bank accounts. Now the problem that you encounter is it costs a fee to do that. So I just asked my bank if they would waive it, and they said yes. Now, even if they wouldn't have waived it, I would still do this system because I've had so much success with this. Even just the organization of 1 added extra account would really just change the game. And I think at my bank it's $3 a month. And so it's absolutely worth $3 a month. All the money that I've saved in the organization and the peace of mind. So on my phone right now, I'm on my bank's app right now. I have 12 different bank accounts because I have 12 different categories and priorities. Now, some of these are joint, some of these are individual. I don't want to show you my personal accounts, but I do have 12 accounts on here. I'll read you the accounts that I have. I have a checking account, a dreams account, emergency fund, my income account because I have things coming in from planner sales all the time. I have a fun and special events account, a bills account, taxes and tithes, savings, eating out coffee, grocery, gas. So I have a lot of different accounts. Now, you don't need to have that many accounts for this organization. I think if you added just even 1 extra account, there would be so much organization. Even if I just had, this is more than I need at this point. So for some of these accounts, I like to have a debit card for them. Some of them I don't. So like, for example, my income account, I don't need a debit card for that. Or for my savings account, I don't need a debit card for that. But there are certain accounts, like my grocery and gas account, I would like a debit card for that, and eating out and coffee especially. So what I do is on the back of the debit card where it has that signature strip, I just write in Sharpie what the category is. So I just wrote grocery on that spot. That's my signature for that card, so that it won't rub off, because it won't rub off on that signature strip. So then when I show up to the grocery store and I'm paying with groceries, I've got that card, and then I can just see in the bank account how I'm doing at any given time without having to look at the past at how I'm doing. I want to see how much I have left, not how much I have spent. But like I said, when it comes to money, the bank is reality. So as long as you keep your budget away on paper on an Excel spreadsheet somewhere detached from the bank, don't be surprised when your goals never are realized in the bank. So I mentioned earlier about budgeting and having a paycheck routine and how that can really impact your finances. But there's something that I didn't mention which can actually have a bigger impact on your finances, and certainly had a bigger impact on mine. So check out this deep dive right here where I'll show you how to make more money so that this paycheck routine can be dreamier than ever.